Recently, the murder mystery genre has taken on a new life of its own, with recent releases of films and television shows that put the viewer right in the middle of the story, as this genre keeps the viewer guessing and results in the viewer paying close attention to every little detail of the show, and ultimately has the viewer putting clues together themselves on who they think is the killer. These are films and television shows like Presumed Innocent, The Perfect Couple, the murder mystery films with Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston on Netflix, and most recently, based on a true story. While this series seems to work initially, it will quickly have you losing interest thanks to its bizarre sequences and unrealistic scenarios. Before we get started, if you're new here, be sure to click subscribe and click the bell to get notifications so that you don't miss any new film and television content. Based on a True Story is the latest installment to the modern murder mystery genre. The series stars Kaylee Cuoco as Ava Bartlett, who's a true crime lover. Her husband, Nathan Bartlett, played by Chris Messina, is an ex-professional tennis player. Lastly, Tom Bateman as Matt Pierce, who is a local plumber and is also the antagonist in the series. The pilot episode begins with the murder of Chloe Lake, as she's brutally slashed in her own apartment. At the same time, Nathan and Ava wind up getting demoted from their jobs and are going broke, all while they run into some plumbing issues in their bathroom. While this is happening, the murder of Lake is now discovered to be performed by a serial killer terrorizing the town, who calls himself the West Side Ripper. Coming to fix their plumbing issues is Matt, a mysterious plumber who oddly knows a lot of information about our two main characters, as he knows what their prior professions were and where they grew up. With Nathan being an ex-professional tennis player who didn't make it thanks to an injury, and Ava being from the same hometown as Matt. Nathan and Matt spark up conversation and the two eventually become friends. As a thank you for fixing their toilet, Nathan agrees to give Matt free tennis lessons. To kick off their new friendship as well, the two decide to play darts at a local bar. It's here where we are then treated to Chloe Lake, the same girl who was murdered in the beginning of the pilot episode. While at the bar, the series does a great job of making you believe that Nathan is the so-called West Side Ripper due to his attraction and interest in Chloe. The next day, while doing research on his computer about Chloe Lake, Nathan discovers that she was murdered. Ava begins to put the pieces of the puzzle together, as she discovers that the West Side Ripper is Matt, as he left behind a blood-soaked blue shoe cover. This, of course, is the same kind of shoe cover that we saw Matt put on once he entered their home. With their entire world crashing down, the two getting demoted from their jobs, and the two being completely petrified of Matt, Ava and Nathan come up with a proposal to Matt to try to remain civil. The proposal includes Matt being a part of their very own true crime podcast, which is the title of the series based on a true story. The podcast would consist of the killer, in this case Matt, speaks on why he committed these awful crimes and how he does it. However, there's one condition: Matt is not allowed to kill anymore. If he does, the podcast is over and he goes straight to jail. And with Ava being the true crime podcast guru, she knows that this kind of podcast would be the first of its kind for the genre and its fans. With Ava and Nathan coming up with this daunting proposal to Matt, this is where the series really grabs your attention and really stands out amongst the other murder mystery television shows, as it leaves you with a total cliffhanger in the very first episode. The series itself is funny, exciting, different, intense, suspenseful, and provides something new to the murder mystery genre. However, things start to escalate once the police department begin to question Nathan as to where he was the night of the murder, thanks to surveillance cameras having him and Matt at the last place Lake was seen alive. Faced with a difficult decision, Nathan decides to not throw Matt under the bus, as it would ultimately be the end of their lives and the podcast, sparking the beginning of their legendary run of their podcast. With the West Side Ripper taking the crime world by storm and their podcast gathering millions of downloads, the three then decide to attend a true crime convention. It's here where things take a turn for the worse, when the only woman apparently to survive an attack by the West Side Ripper surprisingly appears at the convention. Dahlia Stone is her name, and she captivates the audience with the possibility of her recognizing Matt, as throughout this episode, this leads to plenty of intense situations. However, Matt pleads to Nathan and Ava that Dahlia's story is all a lie. Matt makes it his goal to discredit her book and keep the brand of the podcast alive. With Matt recognizing all the fame and fortune Dahlia is receiving, he confronts her by making her feel guilty and come to terms with herself that her story is fraudulent, resulting in Dahlia to commit suicide off the hotel balcony. Also, the scene here where she decides to jump off the balcony to commit suicide is completely unnecessary. The way the directors had Dahlia's dead body coming through the top of an umbrella, I mean, look at this crap. It's by this point in the series where you really begin to question the entirety of the show. However, it's not just this scene that will make you begin to lose interest in the show. There's also the bizarre dream sequences and hallucinations that are spread out throughout the last half of the first season. But we first see this in the third episode where Dahlia commits suicide. Whether this is a super unrealistic nightclub scene that has a reporter getting brutally slashed in the bathroom by the West Side Ripper, weird sexual fantasies that you can instantly tell aren't real, and that also displays Ava on some sort of drug while she's also pregnant for that matter, is really stupid. When we see these scenes, they sort of feel more like filler, but are really just more awkward than needed to be and really stupid. Because of this, I find the show starts off strong initially, especially with the plot and the mysterious character of Matt. But when these bizarre sequences come into play, it just makes the series fall off entirely. The fifth episode of the series, Ted Bundy Bottle Opener, devotes almost the entire episode to these weird hallucinations and sexual fantasies. Sticking with the first season, the way the first season ended was totally awful. There's no lead up, plot development, or any indication that this is the final episode of a season, as it just ends on a complete random cliffhanger. This makes the series thoroughly inconsistent and disappointing, which brings up my biggest issue in this series. There's no resolution whatsoever. It's almost as if the writers and directors set everything up in the first season just for the second season alone, as almost all the storylines throughout the first season are unresolved, from the death of Ruby, the state of the podcast, and all their crazy friends. Going forward into the second season, this really makes the series annoying to watch, as throughout the first season you found yourself getting invested into the show, its plot development, characters, and then going forward into the second season, there's absolutely no ending to anything, almost making it feel like a complete waste of time and really not wanting to grab my attention going forward in the second season. However, that being said, the acting is great. Kaylee Cuoco does a phenomenal job as playing Ava, and she really has great chemistry with Chris Messina. And Tom Bateman does a great job of his portrayal as a bipolar sociopath who also happens to have a real good sense of humor. The episodes are short, concise, and to the point. It's just the unrealistic storylines, narratives, and bizarre hallucinations that really derailed the series entirely. What are your thoughts about Based on a True Story? I would love to hear them down in the comment section below. For more film and television analysis, keep it locked here, right here on this channel.